Oh, how are you doing?
I still didn't get my nap, but I'm hoping to go to sleep after this.
Well, I got an amazing 2 hour nap
Oh,
and, and almost I could have slept longer, but I made myself get up so that I could actually go to bed tonight. So, because I knew it would mess up my sleep later if I stayed in bed.
it was really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, the weekend was a busy one,
Yeah.
but yeah. So tonight, what we'd like to share with you, embracing the seasons of the heart. That was actually what we spoke about at this retreat. So we're just going to give you some bullet points, and then we're just going to share some things with you that we thought were amazing about this weekend. And so the first thing we're going to start with, what do you have to say, Ange? Anything on?
Just a kind of a reminder that real time ministry is it's really just how God has been teaching Barb and I to um, heal the heart, to help women to heal their heart. And we speak a lot in parallels. You'll hear us sharing about how nature looks like the heart and seasons look like the heart. There's a lot of parallels if you're really paying attention to nature and God's universe. Like he's literally given us this amazing template to follow and to follow its lead and to learn from it so that we know how to heal ourselves. And it's not a new age thing.
No.
It's it's a biblical, just a glorious template of how he created order and kingdom principles within the beauty of everything that we look at if we're paying attention.
Yeah. And obviously, we don't heal our health selves. God heals us, but He also comforts us by the way He created nature around us and how it's supposed to be a reflection of what He's doing in our own lives. So when we went into this, the seasons of the heart, it was really amazing how He unfolded what He does in nature and was teaching us. And then we just kind of put it out there and walk other people through it. And we saw some amazing things this weekend. And we had a bunch of laughs too. We had a whole lot of fun. But so we're going to get started. So obviously, we all know the seasons, right? We have winter, spring, summer, and fall. So we're just going to jump in and give you a little recap of what we did this weekend. And Ange, do you want to share about winter?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
some of
Well, one
the
of the first things I want to say is that, you know, seasons come and seasons go.
things.
I mean, we can wake up feeling like it's winter and we can have a cup of coffee and a good friend can call us and all of a sudden it feels like we're in, we're having a spring moment. Like, our our seasons can come and go by the minute or the hour or the day, or we can have seasons that just drag on. I mean, some of us might feel like we're in winter for many, many months before things start to shift and change in our lives. But if you understand the seasons and you understand the like what the seasons teach us about our emotions, it's almost like it gives you more grace to be able to walk through them because you know that it's just temporary. Ecclesiastes 3 talks about the times and the seasons. Like you have seasons for growth and you have seasons for dying and you have seasons for planting and you have seasons for pulling, for harvest. You have seasons to be quiet, you have seasons to talk. Like, so we have to really understand and embrace the seasons so that we can really give ourselves grace to walk through it, because it's not always going to be about rainbows and sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
winter, obviously, for those of us that live in Ohio, especially, it's dreary. It can be cold. Um, our floorboards can start creaking as things expand and doors shut differently and windows close differently and things kind of feel unsettled and damp, and sometimes we go through um, winter seasons in our heart, you know, where it feels like maybe things are a little dark. Maybe it's it's a time of like we just kind of want to sleep a lot. Things don't work the way that they used to. It's kind of like we hibernate and maybe feel a little depressed. But one thing I love about the retreat is it gives people time to share, and they brought up the beautiful things in winter too. You know, the snow sparkles, and it's very bright. There's a brightness about snow that you don't get in the other seasons. And so if you look at it like I'm in the winter season, and so it's a bright, bright time to expose the things in your life that don't work anymore, that need to be, maybe there needs to be a purging, or, you know, a shift in your mindset or whatever. But there's beautiful things about winter too. So it's really about teaching people the grace to walk through the seasons, but also to not get so deeply into the negative parts about those seasons that you miss the beautiful things too, because God's done incredible things and how he's created, you know, the raindrops and the snowflakes, and so that we don't lose hope in the middle of seasons, that we stay encouraged, you
Right,
know.
right. Somebody brought up a good point. It was funny because what do you think of winter? Winter's not quite as bad if you're prepared for it, right? If you're expecting, you kind of know it's coming. So you have a nice warm coat and a fluffy hat and some mittens, and you can go around the block and be like, this is kind of okay. This is actually enjoyable. And I think sometimes when we're in a winter season, spiritually, if we're just not expecting it, we're not prepared, and you know, because God is really like our jacket, our warm hat, right? That he keeps us still, you know, even though the wind's blowing in our face and the troubles are coming, he still keeps us comfortable, if that makes any sense. So it's about being prepared, because if winter comes and you know how your mom always tells you to have boots in your car and this in your car in case your car breaks down. You don't want to be trucking through, you know, down the road in the winter and not be prepared for it,
Yeah.
because it could be pretty brutal.
Hmm.
So if we try to walk through a winter season without the Lord and without his comfort and his warmth and his care for us, it could be even worse and pretty brutal, right?
Oh, oh, for sure.
So
And we really, I mean, we touch on this so much more in depth at the retreats. And what we found is that the women walked away going, oh my gosh, like I have never considered that my life is literally a blueprint. Like, you know, I've never considered that I can look at this and correlate it to how I can extend grace. The thing is like with winter, with any season, really, like we have no control. We have no control of how cold it gets. We have no control about when the rain comes, when the storms come in, you know, tornadoes, hurricanes, whatever. We have no control. We can pray as those things are coming, you know, coming through. But, you know, if we can't control the weather and we can't control the elements, what makes us think that we can control when things come up in our life that kind of disrupt our peace and shake the foundations? And, you know, we just really have to, we have to learn how to maneuver through it and to gain clarity and strength from it.
right, right. So we walk through winter, right? And then what comes next? Spring is on the way, people. And so spring is a time of new beginnings, right? You start to see life again. Those seeds that were hibernating and, you know, in the cold ground are now like kind of peeking through, and we're like, oh my gosh, is there hope? Is there hope in my situation? Is there a new beginning coming, right? But even new beginnings can create kind of feelings of uncertainty. It can be exciting. It could also make you feel unequipped, but yet hopeful. So spring is one of those seasons where, it's changing kind of rapidly, I think,
Mhm.
because so many times I'll be going down the road and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I see green on the trees. And the next week I'm like, the tree, like the trees are here, there's green. And then you start to see things blooming and blossoming. So spring spiritually to me is just a time of new beginnings. And maybe all those prayers that we planted in the ground are beginning to show up, and it's always in God's timing. You can't rush spring. You can't make things grow out of the ground before it's time. And God's timing is always perfect. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
you had such a good point, Ange. You were talking about how when spring starts, which is our new beginnings, right? We're going into a new land and new experiences. And then all of a sudden, something happens again. Like we get frost hits, and the plant's like kind of dead. And you're like, wait a minute. Can you kind of expound on that? How you said, like,
Oh, it
God.
just, yeah, just how, when we see this freshness come up in our lives and we can tell that we're coming into a season of just hope and newness. And like, yeah, sometimes a sudden frost will come. And those are those suddenly moments where, maybe a storm comes through and the roof needs repaired, or the kids aren't getting along and they're fighting every day, or, something happens with, a financial move that went bad or whatever. Like it's like we can be in a season of spring and feel so much encouragement, but all of a sudden something slips in, and it's those little frosty moments where things kind of get a film over them, and it's really easy to shift and to feel instantly discouraged. And we have to almost take our thoughts captive and not be controlled by our emotions and not be moved to fear and panic when those little hiccups come, because we know we're still in this season. And it's like, okay, just like nature, like, okay, we got this, we can do this. Okay, now how do we need to look at this differently? What steps do we need to make now to get through this? We've got this. But the key is to not be moved out of our position, to not be so like 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 struck with panic that we lose sight of the glorious things that are happening in the moment.
Yeah, like when we get a handle on something that we think we're really growing in the Lord, and maybe it's our temper, and then we lose it. We're like, wait a minute, I thought I had that under control. But you had a good point because you said, but you catch it quicker this time. You know what I mean? And it's like you're growing, and that's kind of what spring is like, right? All those new changes. So
Yeah. Oh, I guess I didn't really understand where you were coming from when you asked about that, but yeah,
I love when you explain that.
it's like your bounce back is quicker. It's like the more that you understand that your life is about seasons, it's about the Ecclesiastes 3 moments, the more that you just kind of roll with the punches and you learn how to make lemonade out of lemons, and you learn how to just take things by stride and to not be shaken. And you're the more that you do that, the more you trust the Lord. And then yeah, your bounce back is quicker. Like you,
Mm-hmm.
where you used to maybe panic in the past and get stuck in that fear and stuff for maybe a couple of weeks, now you notice it, you recognize it immediately, and then you're like, okay, you know enough. Like, I've got this. I see, God, where you've been there for me in the past. You've done these many blessings. And yeah, I'm not going to stay planted in this place. I'm not going to camp here.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. So after spring, what can we experience after our new beginnings start happening? And just so you know, it's not an either or. Sometimes we can pass through these seasons in a day's time, but a lot of times we will go through seasons that seem like they last maybe months, or I don't know, maybe even a year. But the good news is it's always progressing, it's always changing, and we're all walking through the seasons. I don't care who you are. I mean, Ange could be in the middle of summer and I could be in the dead of winter. You know what I mean? At the same time. That doesn't mean I'm stuck forever in my winter, right? God doesn't work like that. He's forever, the seasons are forever changing, and he's teaching us through each season. And I just love it. We just have to be patient. So,
Yeah, so summer's
mhm.
next, I mean, for most of us, summer feels like the season in our life that everything's going well. You've got beautiful flowers, um, the sunshine makes you happy, maybe everything in life is going smoothly. And but make no mistake about it, like, if you don't tend to your garden in the summer, it's going to be overtaken by weeds. If you don't keep things watered, they're going to dry up. If you don't pull weeds, you're gonna end up with a mess of weeds growing throughout all your pretty stuff. So even though it's a beautiful season, it's a season of hard work. And it really just shows you how your heart is. Like, we have to tend to our heart. We have to keep the bad things pulled out. We have to keep things watered. And, think about the watering of the word. Um, and also we talked about, like, that it's a season where, think about all your goodies that grow in your garden. We always have tons of tomatoes and green beans, and so it could be a season in your life where it feels like you're not really striving as much. Things are just kind of, you're seeing the fruit of your labor, and now you got all this produce, this harvest that is coming, and what do you do with it all? And so it's a season of giving back to the community. But also, you brought up um, something awesome about that it's sometimes when everything's going smoothly.
It's this kind of like, even though I enjoy it and I love summer, obviously we like to sleep in later, we like to go on vacation. It's like in our spiritual life, it's like, oh my gosh, all the praying, it's just all come to pass and life is good, right? But for me, it's more challenging to really abide in him. That sounds crazy. It should be. And it's not that, I have to work more at being diligent to spend time with him, because the need is not so great. So it's a time that you have to choose him, right? You can't just go on vacation and then never do anything with your garden, right? You come back and all your flowers are dead. Everything's eventually going to go if you don't spend time on it, right? You don't keep up with it. In the same way with our relationship with the Lord, we can just feel like, hey, we've got it all, right? And then the bottom falls out and we're like, Lord, where are you? And rather than keeping it consistent with him. And see, he wants to teach us throughout these seasons, because we have to choose him more, not just cry out for help during that time, right? We just have to pursue him in our goodness, in all the goodness he's given us, and be grateful. And I love it, but it is a hard season, even though it's a lot of fun,
Yeah, it's
right?
like it's almost like, you you tend to press into him more when you have the storms of life. You tend to cry out for his help whenever you're seeing things blown around, and blown apart in your life. But when all things are well and it seems like you're in a season of plenty, it's like we often forget
Mm-hmm.
that we still have to spend time with him. We really still have to keep, cultivating the garden of our heart in that area with where he's concerned. It's like, you got to stay in connection with him and stuff. So, yeah.
And you had a really good point, because you were talking about, our gardens being full, and like an abundance, a harvest of some, so many times when things are going really good for us, it's a time that we can really share and pour into other people. Just like you were talking about, your parents canned a lot and they would give, vegetables and fruit out to people. And we're supposed to be giving of ourselves and really just helping feed other people when, we're in that position, we're in a strong, part of our spiritual life. So it's a great time to reach out to people. And that again is community. So when God gives you these gifts and talents and, an abundance, and Angela and Dave, I have to say, are very good at doing this. They are very much givers, because the Lord blesses them with abundance. Is Dave there? Is Davey there? Dave, let me see your face. I saw him sneak by.
He heard his name.
I was passing through.
Hey, how you doing, Dave? Just talking about you. Such sweet people. But they are very, very giving. And the abundance that God pours into their lives, they're very much a pouring out. And that's why God trusts them with it, I'm sure. So we need to do that. And it's about creating, with our gifts and talents, like connection with people and creating community. And then it just multiplies itself. That's what we're supposed to do with our abundance.
So think about this, like you said it, and just in so many words you said, you have to be trusted with your harvest. You have to be trusted with your harvest. I was thinking about how mom and dad, used to can, and they would, at any given time, they had like 5 years worth of food stored up, in their basement. And these canning jars were so beautiful. Like you saw all the colors, and it was beautiful. And, but it's like they did that so that when the hard seasons came, they were prepared. And we really have to do that in our spiritual seasons too. It's like we have to take an inventory. We have to stock up on the goodies, the goodness of what God has, the riches of what he has for us, so that when the seasons come that it feels like there's less than, that we can look back over and treat it like a Sabbath, and look back over and go, I see what you did. I see the jars of goodness that you have given me in this last season. And that's going to be what I grab a hold of to help me.
You can actually go back and get the jars in the winter season when you're hungry and there's nothing growing in your garden, right? And you can go, here it is. I remember you giving me this. And I'm gonna partake of that, and I'm gonna be encouraged by that. I've had to do that many times in my life. Go, if he can do that, I'm sure he can do this, which gives us courage for the future, because we're like, well, if he's done it then, now, he's certainly going to do it in the future, right? Be a summer season that we can stock up and count on again. And he gets us through all the winters. That's why I love the seasons. And I think that's why it helps so many people this weekend, is they realize, when we're in summer, we know that fall is coming. We know the kids are going back to school, right? It happens every year. They go back to school. And the schedules are different. Things are changing, right? So we're going to walk into fall right now. It's a season that we're watching things fade, and they're changing, right? But yet it's very vibrant. It's very beautiful. But then there's a dying off. So there's a lot going on in fall. But like I was saying, we're not shocked when we know our schedules are going to change in the fall, right? We know that we're going to have to get up early, no more lazy mornings, no days at the pool. We're going to have sports schedules. We're going to have lunches to pack, all that stuff. And we're like, that's okay, because eventually we'll have Christmas break, right? We're going to get a break. We know it's not going to be this forever. So when things begin to change in our life, it was funny. We were talking, so many people equate change with something bad, but that's not necessarily so. Even when it feels like it might not, like a losing of that job, we don't know what God has for us in the future. And sometimes we're like, thank goodness I lost the job, because now I'm in a job that I really love, or whatever it is. So change, we don't have to fear it. We don't have to really fear anything with God because He is in control of it. And even when it's cold, He's our warm jacket, right? Even when things are changing, He's like, got a plan. Not telling you right now, but it's a good one. Um, it's
Well,
all good with Him.
and you touched on this earlier, but you know, just because I'm in a summer month doesn't mean that you're in a summer month. Like somebody could be in winter whenever everything in my life is going great. And I think that when we understand that Ecclesiastes 3 holds true for everyone, that we are able to really love people differently when they're in a season that looks different than our season. And when they're in winter, even though things are look differently for us, we're able to really press in and love them differently, knowing that they too are in this season that eventually it will pass, but it's hard to get through it. And it's almost like it gives you patience then, because the last thing you want to do is rush someone out of the season that they're in if they're supposed to learn something amazing in that season. You don't want to rush them through it,
Right.
because we have these tools built into us and stuff when we're going through seasons. So if my children are going through a hard season, why would I want to just go, buck up, buttercup, like pull your big girl pants up, and get over it already? Why would I do that whenever I know that there's some amazing things built into them in that season? And I honestly, as a mom, I want them to learn all that they can in those seasons, because I know ultimately it's going to be used to fulfill their purpose.
Right.
So
Right. It's so good. Yeah. Because we were talking like how sometimes it can change in a day. So you can wake up like feeling like the sky is falling, right? And just overwhelmed. And maybe I call Ange and we process together. And by the time I get off, I'm like, you know what? It's gonna be okay. And then I'm like, no, it's gonna be amazing. Like I'm in a better mood. So that's what we do for each other as friends. And then maybe our husband comes home from a really terrible day at work. And we're in this great mood, and they come in and they're like, and you're like, come on, don't be so negative. I mean, we would never say that to our friends, right? We're like, oh, what's going on? And we give them grace. And we need to do that for the people that we love, because it's so often we just want them to be right where we're at because we don't want anybody to disturb our
yeah.
our our good mood. We just have, because we know it'll pass, but we have to encourage and we have to go, okay, this is really what they're walking through right now. This is what they feel like, a little discouraged. And fall can make you feel concerned, which is normal. Like when change is happening, don't beat yourself up. It can make you feel unsure, anxious, and even disillusioned.
Mm.
So you're like, wait a minute, this tree was so beautiful and green and full, and what is happening? Like everything's falling, everything's getting bare, everything's not the same. But again, I think it's just so incredibly, and I'll go back to fall. Like the leaves are beautiful, they're brilliant, but yet they're dying at the same time. So it can be either or. The change can be hard or just like amazing. So
Well,
I think it's
and I just, even while you were talking about the fall leaves, and I never really thought about this before, but when the trees have those beautiful fall leaves, and like you said, they're beautiful, but they're dying.
pretty.
And like we we could almost see that as those things that God has asked us to, okay, Angela, let that die there. And there's almost like a grieving that comes when we have to let things die, right? But
Mhm.
think about in the winter, or in the fall, when a certain breeze comes through, and then those leaves that have been hanging this just suddenly drop. And while you were talking, it made me think of like the ease of, if we would consider the breeze to be like the move of God that is suddenly coming in, where He's saying, stop resisting, let this drop already. And the sooner that that tree allows that wind to come through and those leaves drop, is the same way as how when we allow his breath and his breeze to come, that the quicker we let go of the things that he's asking us to drop, the easier it's going to be. Like, we're not going to try to hang on to it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yep, yep. That's so
I mean,
good. And what we did,
so much more. There's so much
oh,
more.
yes, we're touching on these seasons so you can kind of get a grasp of what we were talking about. But it will help you if you realize you're not stuck in that season forever. Whatever season it is, just plan on it. Just being prepared, going, gosh, okay, I'm in kind of a dark or cold season. How do I prepare myself? By spending time with the Lord, the one who brings the warm coat and all that. But so what we did is we went through the 4 seasons and we said, this is what you do in all seasons. Okay. I'm going to read the different things and then we're going to go into depth. So, well, not in depth, but
I touch on them.
first we identify the season, we abide, we rest, and we listen. Now we're going to like describe these a little bit more because you do this if you do this in each season, I believe it's where God wants us and how to look at the season and how to deal with it. So Angie, you want to I'll take the first one. When we identify the season, first we're going to recognize what season you are currently walking through. Okay. If you're going even tonight, just practice. What season do you feel like you're in right now?
I feel like I'm in a fall season.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I can tell that things are getting ready to kind of blow and change. I can feel change coming,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had some old triggers come up, some old, kind of. I've talked about this before, but rejection is kind of a button for me, and I felt that being touched, even in this last week as I'm hanging on to some leaves for dear life, and
Let go.
what about you? What season are
That's
you in?
awesome. Well, honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this because I feel like I'm kind of in summer right now. Because I was in a brutal winter and then I felt like all this change just started to happen and I was like amazed by it. Didn't expect spring to come ever. And now I feel like I'm in summer, but I know summer is not very long, so I'm enjoying it.
Mhm.
But okay, so and then when you identify the season, what you want to do is what are you to learn as you walk through this temporary season? So when you're experiencing these things, just say, okay, Lord, what do you want to teach me, in this season? And especially when it doesn't matter if it's good, bad, changing, new beginnings. What do you want to teach me?
Yeah.
Okay. So
And how does it play into our purpose? Really?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always going to be those questions. You want to talk about abiding, Jake or
Jake,
Jake? I don't know where
I
that
am
came from.
not your son.
Hmm.
So really, abiding is, just like the seasons, like you have to tolerate and bear patiently the season you find yourself in. You don't have a choice. Like, there's an ebb and flow for every season, and you either fight it or you accept it. You have to just withstand it without objection. And that's hard for people that are control freaks, but just like you can't control the weather, you can't control the seasons of your life. You have to not object.
Well, it's trusting without objection. Just say, okay, Lord, I
Yep.
don't get it. That's trusting.
And you gotta remain stable and fixed as you wait upon the Lord in that season. And my last one that we put was my favorite because it's to sojourn in the house of the Lord and remain in his presence. And really that is the truth of every guideline every season is you have to sojourn. You have to power through as the warrior that God has made you and remain in his presence through every season. You have to practice remaining in his presence. It doesn't always come easy at first, but it is something that it's not Sunday service kind of relationship with God. It is a, you are the church and you have the opportunity every single day to be the church and to respond to him and to have that unending, undivided relationship with him each moment. And it's up to you to keep that strong.
You stay there, you can walk through any season with,
Amen.
and actually enjoy it, because they're all beautiful. Every season is beautiful. Okay, so rest. A state of minimal function as you allow God to be your support. Like, rest. I don't know about you, but that's kind of a hard one for, I think, most of us, because we're taught to, the next one, a death to striving and performance. What have we been taught our whole life? you got to be good. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to do this. And when things aren't going right, I mean, my first thought is, or it used to be, like, what do I do? What do I do? And run this scenario and that scenario over and over and over. And then I'm just controlling the situation rather than just going, okay, I really need to sneak away with you. I really need to come into rest and trust you on this one, because it's way bigger than me. And I think I give up a lot quicker than I used to. It's a giving up. Rest, freedom from activity or labor, a letting go. Again, what I was saying. It's a brief pause and silence to find peace of mind and spirit. Sounds like a nice warm bath with some praise music on. I know Ange does that a lot, don't you? Every time I talk to her, I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm in the bathtub. I thought you were in the bathtub this morning. Oh, I'm taking another bath.
I have to be probably the cleanest person in this kingdom. Yeah, I'm telling you, if I feel stress, if I feel, oftentimes when I mentor somebody, I will take a bath as soon as they leave. It is my way to debrief. There's something powerful about soaking, and I put on good music and I just quiet myself and I just kind of slough off what was just poured on me. So that's why I do it sometimes twice a day.
Yeah, so it's literal. And then rest is giving up the idea of needing to know what's next.
Oh, yikes.
Crazy, right? We all want to know what's next, but it's a giving up. It's a giving.
That's the hardest part, when people have to figure out, when people go through hard times and they're like, I don't know what's around the corner. I don't know what God has for me. And when they learn that they have to surrender that need to know what's next, holy smokes, that sends any control freak into a frenzy.
But you know what? You know how you learn this, and you know how I learned it? You're not going to want to hear it. It's when things like the bottom falls out and there ain't nobody you can call to help you. And you're like, okay, I mean, there's no way to even figure this one out. So God, help. Like, remember the time I said I walked around the whole entire block, and the only thing, because I thought I have to pray, and I couldn't think of a thing to pray other than help, 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 all over around. And guess what he did? He helped. I mean, he can turn anything. For me to be in a summer right now is only God, right, Ange? So, yeah.
And then we have to listen. We have to listen. It's a quieting of ourselves in order to hear the Holy Spirit. I mean, Ecclesiastes 3 talks about there's a time to talk and there's a time to be silent. How can you have a relationship with somebody if you're the only one that's ever doing the talking? So you got to learn how to listen. And the Holy Spirit can only speak to us if we're quieting ourselves. learning the different ways he speaks. Sometimes he speaks to me through music. Sometimes there will be a certain line that drops out of a movie that speaks right into my situation. He can use anything. He's the God over everything. And so it's pretty cool to learn the different ways that he does that. To hear his direction with thoughtful attention and consideration, and being able to just discern the intentions of one's heart, like good or bad. So I feel like I got my pretty girl right here. I should put her face. I should put her face in here.
Is that Morgan? Oh, it's beautiful.
She is beautiful.
How you doing? We missed you this weekend.
No, I had my boy.
Maybe next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, she brought that little handsome son of hers so we could baby. So,
Horrible.
yeah, he's soaking in the tub. He's soaking in Mima's tub right now.
Serious?
My big tub. But you know, this is just a drop in the bucket for what we discuss at these retreats. And I don't know about your favorite part, Barb, but my favorite part was definitely the rich conversation that we had. I mean, it was amazing to hear these women talk about, wow, I've never considered this, but this is the season I'm in, and I okay, I'm seeing it differently now. It's like we have been so taught as a society through our traumas, our backgrounds, whatever. We're all from different backgrounds, but we've been so taught that we have to control everything, and that, you know, we got to do a certain thing or be a certain thing or whatever. Like, it's all on us, and we'll even take it upon ourselves to, you know, blame ourselves for things that go wrong. And it, just listening to these women talk, it was so good.
Yeah. Yeah, well, each retreat, not only is it a different location, a different subject, but we kind of do it in a different way because we're trying to like listen how he wants us to do it, right? It's ever evolving. So this retreat was really cool because we didn't get up and like teach with a PowerPoint or anything. We kind of read through it, had conversation between the two of us, kind of like you're seeing here. And then we wanted them to practice the 4 things that we just told you. Where's my little list? My memory's tired. About abiding. Where's my list? Anyway, the 4 things. In listening to God, right? So we had them journal, and you know, just we had questions for them to ask the Lord, and then we would come back and we would have conversation between them and between us, and we would, you know, just oversee it, but they would have these points that were like, because when you hear from God and you have that anointing on it, I mean, it speaks to everybody in the room. When God whispers a sentence or a word or a thought to you, and then you share it with other people, everybody's like, oh yeah, that's good. So I was ministered to, Ange was ministered. I was like, wow, that's a good point. So God kind of just like steered the whole thing, in my opinion, the conversation. And it was really awesome. And there was major connection between all these women. Like there were a couple women that didn't know each other before they got there, and they're planning to go on a missions trip together. You know, somebody from one church is they go on this mission, and they're like, okay, well, we'll call you next week. And then I'm like, and they're all making all these different connections. I love it.
Oh, I love that they're going to continue, you know, to do their coffee breaks. And because, I mean, we do need community. I don't care. I don't care who you are. Like, we had a couple ladies that came to this retreat that you can just tell that they're just really hungry for people to just listen, to just hear them. You know? And when you meet them there and you give them the permission, no matter how ugly, no matter how much they talk, no matter it just doesn't matter. It's like when you give them that freedom to be able to share their hearts and process, that's a freedom all in its own, because there's just so many people out there that they've never had anyone just meet them right where they are. Um,
Everybody needs it. I mean, it's a need and it's important, but it's hard to find a safe place for that. And tell them, Ange, about how from the last, I don't know if it was from the last retreat or the one before that, that these ladies are starting to get together on their own.
oh,
They're starting to have.
yeah. Yeah, so our one friend that came to our retreats, she kind of was like, I love these ladies. Like, I want to continue to meet up with them. So I think like once or twice a month, maybe twice a month, they're making, they started a group thread and they just put the invitation out there. Hey, we're going out to eat, or hey, we're going to go do breakfast and have coffee at this coffee shop or whatever. And then they just all come together, and they continue to to
Build
feed those
relationships.
friendships, yeah, those friendships and relationships. And
Good.
so it's so cool, as we are the ones that founded this ministry, and we kind of whatever, what's the word, headed up or whatever. And but it's awesome because every time we have these retreats, we have some repeat people come, and you can just see how their relationships have flourished so much since the beginning retreat. Like now they're like hugging on each other and joking and sitting with it, and it's like you see these friendships just formed and cultivated, and it's just beautiful.
It's awesome. So, okay. So that is our fall retreat wrap up.
Yep.
And now we're headed toward what? And
Yep.
when's our next one?
So we have another retreat coming up January 31st through February 2nd. It's in Uniontown, Ohio, in this absolutely big, gorgeous home I mean, it is just, I can't wait.
I think
And
it can sleep like 30 or
yeah,
35 people.
yeah,
I mean, it's not your typical home, I assure you.
yes. And this retreat is going to be called Stewarding the Chambers of the Heart. And I will tell you that if you come to this retreat, you will never worship the same way again. It is going to awaken in you the absolute awe and wonder of how God has fearfully and wonderfully made you. And when you worship, you will never see it the same way again. I can promise you.
Yeah, we have somebody saying hello, one of our sweet friends from a retreat. We love you. Hopefully you can come in January.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I think that's going to be a wrap for tonight. Gosh, we had a great time, didn't we, Ange?
We really did. And you know what? Like, we wrapped up the day, and these sweet ladies, they didn't want to leave. And not only that, but they were like, you know what? You put all this work into this. We're going to bust our rear ends. We're going to help you. And they did.
They
And
helped
they,
us clean up. It took us like an hour and a half just to, I mean, we brought pillows and throws and candles. Gosh, we had half our house came with us because we wanted to cozy it up a bit, right, Ange?
and they all worked together, and they helped us load our vehicles, and we were out of there in no time. And so to those of you watching that helped us, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We were tired, and we poured ourselves out all weekend,
Okay.
and so
And we
nice.
have to thank Tanya and Crystal because
Yes.
these girls shopped for days. I kid you not. And they prepared and prepared and prepared at home for a couple days before they came and then worked all weekend. And our food was spectacular, I might say.
Yeah, it
Everything
was
is so special and so sweet. The way they present it and the taste, it's so thought out. I don't think like that.
not only
I like that,
that,
but I think like that.
well, they're using their giftings,
Yes.
and it's more than just the warmth of what they provide in the kitchen with the meals. Like, they are just warm, caring women.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved, during our sessions, women would go out, they grab a coffee, you know, you would see Tanya and Crystal kind of pulling them aside and loving on them and hugging them, and like they are truly, we're just such a team, and we couldn't do it without them.
Mhm.
Like, but they offer so much more than food. It's
Oh yeah.
friendship. Their hearts are so precious, and uh, I learn from them. They teach me how to love, and I don't know about you, Barb, but I need people to teach me how to love.
No, me too. I think we can all learn from each other. Every woman there, I mean, had like wisdom that they brought with them, and I was just like, oh, so good, so good. Oh, and I do want to thank, we had Susie
Oh,
Baldwin. They came. Oh my goodness, and she did our photography stuff, and it's been a passion of hers. She's wanted a place to be able to do it and use it, and she had this beautiful camera and click click click.
well, she had such an eye for detail.
Uh-huh.
Like, you know, I would watch her. She would pay attention to like the backdrops and all that, and she'd say to the women, you know, hey, let's take turns. Sit right here. And she was getting, I can't wait to see her
Yeah.
pictures. And then come to find out, like I felt the prompting of the Lord to ask her to come and take pictures because first of all, she is so tender and she's so sweet and so much love to give. And so I wanted a loving and sweet and kind person to be there to take pictures. But also, I really wanted, I just really wanted her to be with us. Like, I feel like she has something to really give, and that she's not maybe been given the space to be able to use her giftings.
Mhm.
Come to find out, this weekend, she comes up to me and says, you know, I don't think she ever really told anybody this maybe, but she said photography's always been a dream of mine. It's always been something that I've wanted to do. And I'm telling you, you could see that. You could see her coming alive as she was taking pictures and just enjoying everyone. And it was beautiful. Like, I feel too, like she's just such a wonderful added asset to us.
She's got a very sweet spirit. I caught her out in the kitchen all the time helping Tanya and Crystal. And she's just got a servant's heart. And you know what? We need to be more like our dad because he was quite the servant of all servants. And when we serve each other, there's so much blessing in that and so much goodness.
So good.
Anyway, all right. Until we meet again, I don't know. Oh, I don't think it'll be next Sunday because I'm at a conference,
Okay.
but
Okay, sounds good. Well, we'll come back around maybe in a couple weeks. We'll be able to do it. So,
all
yeah.
right. Hey, and if you guys have any interest in the January retreat, I know we've already got people signing up. So just let us know and look at your schedule and do something for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Message us if you have questions about that retreat. They do tend to fill up fast, and then sometimes we'll have people kind of drop out, and then all of a sudden we'll have a couple more openings. But the point is that you want to get your spot reserved, and so message us if you have questions about that, so we can get your spot.
Yeah, we had a full one this time, even though we had a couple that had to cancel last minute because of work, and then it filled right back up with the right people that were supposed to be there. So it's all
Yeah.
good.
Yes, and honestly, all of our retreats have been packed to the gills. Like we couldn't fit anybody else. We were really full. So we've been very blessed at just how people have responded. We give the thanks to the Lord for that because He is definitely captivating hearts, and women are hungry. So,
Yep.
yeah. All right.
Good
Well,
night, Ann.
talk to you later. Bye.